Hi, I'm Ben Data, CEO of Food Maven and a Denver Startup Week co-founder. Denver Startup Week has always been about community. And today, it's more important than ever to show how we can come together to create opportunities out of the challenges that we face. Opportunities for every member of the community. Before we dive in, we want to say a special thank you to our 2020 Denver Startup Week sponsors who make it all possible. Thanks to our title sponsors, Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Xero. And our track sponsors who have made all the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 and the Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Health, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement this week. Thank you to Wix, Kenzen, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. You help make all of this possible.
At Zayo, our fiber fuels global innovation. Everything we do, everything we can imagine. Never in history has innovation happened at such a rapid pace. And all of it depends on bandwidth connectivity. Millions of miles of Zayo's fiber span the globe, traveling unique routes, providing dense metro footprints, offering next-generation solutions. We didn't just see the future of fiber, we built it. We delivered it. Every millisecond, our fiber is fueling crucial operations, breakthroughs, and innovations for the world's most impactful companies. Companies that are disrupting the status quo, igniting imaginations, revolutionizing industries, and creating brand new ones. Our customers are advancing wireless communication, transforming healthcare, changing education, revolutionizing transportation, redefining banking, powering retail, and upping the game in esports. These innovators rely on Zayo's fast, secure fiber networks to connect their offices, factories, data centers, clouds, exchanges, venues, and more, ultimately fueling innovation and transforming lives. And behind those fiber connections, Zayo is all about human connections. We take ownership in all we do. Our employees take the initiative to deliver trusted solutions to every customer and make their experience effortless. We are energetic and entrepreneurial, a partner to rely on. We are Zayo. We are working with our customers on what comes next, constantly anticipating what can be. We are fueling global innovation that is changing the world.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm John Wilker. I'm the Spotlight and Headline Events Track Chair and a member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for our first ever virtual Denver Startup Week and this session, Entrepreneurs of Color Igniting Social, Economic, and Environmental Change. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's that we're more powerful when we come together as a community to share ideas and help each other be better. And here we are, virtually showing the world what Denver has to offer. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, sexual orientation, or the combination of those identities. There is something for everyone at DSW. Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you to Zayo for being such a fantastic partner. Denver Startup Week would not be the same without them. I will hand it off now to Otisa.
Thank you so much, John. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here. Being part of Denver Startup Week. My name is Otisa Eads, and my business name is Otisa Eads LLC. I am an operational diversity consultant, and I help clients navigate the HR, strategy, and systems with their business. So I'll be your host and MC this evening, but before we get right in there, I want to have Sydney, I believe you want to say a few things before we get started.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Sydney. I'm the owner of Citrine Unlimited. You'll hear more about my business later, but I am the founder of Entrepreneurs of Color, Igniting Change. And really, I created this group of amazing individuals because I started a business that was based in sustainability, and the space felt really lonely. You know, I was the only person of color and one of the only women at the time showing up in these spaces. And I was like, there's a huge disconnect, you know. BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color are the most heavily impacted groups of folks affected by sustainability, but we're not like feeling invited into this space. And I found out through doing a lot of my own, you know, like marketing research, that a lot of it has to do with languaging and just having that resonate with people of color. So yeah, thank you all for joining. And I'm really excited for this panel discussion and all the amazing folks that are on with us today. So without further ado, I'll hand it back to Otisa.
Thank you, Sydney. I believe Teresa has some things to say as well. She is with Rocky Mountain Finance Institute, and I'll let you go ahead and go.
Awesome, thanks. Well, it's great to be here this evening. Happy fall, everyone. My name is Teresa Myers. I'm here representing Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs dating back to my great-grandparents who emigrated from Italy and started a fruit business, to then my own grandparents and my parents running their own businesses. The real why behind why I do this work is because I believe in the real vibrancy that entrepreneurs bring to our community. So I'm here mostly as an observer, and I'm here to share just for a few minutes with all the entrepreneurs and the aspiring entrepreneurs listening in about Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute as a resource in our Denver community. So real quick backtrack, RMMFI was founded 12 years ago in the wake of the last recession, in recognition that entrepreneurs in our community needed access to small and non-predatory loans to start and grow their businesses. So we started off as a microfinance endeavor, and over that next decade, really expanded to a suite of capacity building, mentorship, community building, and financial products that are tailored to aspiring entrepreneurs who may not otherwise have access to the capital or the networks to launch a business. We are not industry specific. We work across a variety of industries and services. We work with chefs and healers and artists, service professionals, designers, retailers, all sorts of makers and doers. There are 3 stages of Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute's programming that map the journey from thinking about being a business owner to really thriving and growing as a successful business owner. And we refer to those phases as idea, launch, and thrive. It's 2020, and I don't need to tell this group that COVID has exacerbated our country's inequities, racial and economic, and it's been particularly felt by the entrepreneurial community. Today, resources that focus on entrepreneurs whose needs aren't being met by our traditional banks, by our state and local policy response to COVID, and by our white and male dominant entrepreneurial spaces are critical. About 90% of the businesses that RMMFI works with are considered micro businesses, have less than 5 employees outside of the founder. More than 60% of the entrepreneurs that we work with identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and about 2/3 are female founders. Our team itself is comprised of staff and coaches that identify as Black, Indigenous, and POC leaders and entrepreneurs, as well as white allies like myself. What I really want to say is what sets the organization apart is a guiding philosophy about this whole entrepreneur. I think more than any other startup support that I've found out there, the focus of RMMFI is the entrepreneur behind the business, making sure that they are set up for success as a person, as a colleague, as a future boss, as a parent, a spouse, a community leader. It's really through our trust-based lending and creating this deep community that the 270 plus businesses we've helped to launch have an 85% survivorship rate after 5 years, compared to just over half nationally. what I really want to end with is a kind of a call out to all the aspiring entrepreneurs and those who are considering relaunching a business, and to all the visionaries who want to see our post-COVID world be more local and more diverse. Please consider joining the RMMFI community through one of our programs. We focus on those whose households earn 80% or less of the area median income, which is about $55,000 per year for a single head of household. If that's not you, still connect with us and we'll help refer you to one of our trusted partners. And then to all of the established entrepreneurs out there, please consider joining RMMFI as a coach. Each entrepreneur we work with is paired with a coaching team to support their journey. So if you have expertise in finance or sales or marketing, accounting, volunteering your expertise is a really impactful way to help our community's homegrown entrepreneurs thrive. So you can check out RMMFI at our website, rmmfi.org. You can shoot me an email. That's just Teresa at RMMFI. And I really hope to see some of you connect our way. And I think with that, I'm turning it back and really looking forward to hearing from this incredible panel tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Teresa, for just letting us know what you do. And now I'm going to have Karen speak a few words about Kite and Dart.
Yeah, thank you so much, Otisa. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. My name is Karen Bartlett, and I'm a partner at the Kite and Dart Group. And what we do with the Kite and Dart Group is we work with entrepreneurial activists. And we see that as people who are working to not only create social change through their business, but they're also dedicated to doing business in different ways that is in alignment with activism, that is in alignment with creating really a transformed landscape of what it means to be doing business. So we, as far as the clients that we work with, we help them create, grow, and scale their businesses in ways that are in alignment with who they are authentically, what their values are, what their commitments are, and really their passions and expertise and all of that, and helping them to really do that in ways that are in alignment. One thing that we've seen is for what we consider to be non-traditional entrepreneurs, that's who we work with, that a lot of traditional business practices that are really rooted in, white dominant culture that can be oppressive, and it just doesn't work for people who are really interested in the contribution that they want to make to the world and the difference that they want to make. And so what happens is a lot of times people who are coming from a different perspective tend to not want to engage in things like sales and marketing and that kind of thing, because the way the dominant culture does that it doesn't fit for them. So we have courses, we have ongoing cohorts, we work with clients one-on-one as well, where we offer an alternative to that. And again, we consider that to be like transformed business practices that are outside of those oppressive systems and structures. So that's the work we do at Kite and Dart Group. And then I just want to give a little shout out. We sponsor Entrepreneurs of Color community. And we just, first of all, we started because we love Sydney. Sydney, we would do anything to support you. And you've been such a contribution to us. We have a really synergistic relationship with Sydney. And so we would do anything to support you. Thank you so much for the work you do. And I think what I love is when I was looking at, the faces on the screen with this group, I've got years of experience of going to networking events, and the faces that you see today is not representative of what you see in a lot of networking groups in the Denver entrepreneurial community. And so I really, really appreciate having a much more diverse group of entrepreneurs who are lending their voice and who are sharing their expertise, sharing what they know. And I learn every single time I come to the group. And I have developed some great relationships with folks who I've met at the group. And I just think it's a real contribution. Kite and Dart is very much about community. And we believe and know that we can all be better in business when we work together and when we lift each other up. And I think that that's what Entrepreneurs of Color is really about. So thank you all for having me here. I'm going to go off screen and let y'all do your thing. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for saying all of those great things. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that's here with us. If you have any specific questions for our panelists, you can direct those questions to the Q&A part down below in your viewfinder here. So if you could not put questions in the chat, and go ahead and put them in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Feel free to engage, and if you hear some, I call them truth nuggets or gold nuggets, feel free to put that in the chat and direct your questions in the Q&A. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I would like each panelist to introduce themselves before we jump right into the questions. Patrice, would you go first?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Patrice Palmer. I use the pronouns they, them, theirs. I am the CEO, founder, and principal consultant at eROOT Consulting, LLC, which is a innovative organization that creates engaging D&I with SMB companies, organizations, and B2B startups. One of the things I love about the company is the fact that it had me in mind as a Black, queer, trans, non-binary person. I didn't see folks that look like me showing up not only in the workplace, but having our story and our narrative a part of how work is better. And so that is really what I feel that this organization is going to be able to do for folks. I am rooted in academia and have been in academia for quite some time. And again, I didn't see myself represented in those spaces. And so the work that is being done with eROOT is about inclusion, and inclusion actually encompasses everyone. And it creates a humanity that is, I think, missing when it comes to business. If you do not understand people, you can't understand business. And so that's one of the things that eROOT is doing.
Thank you so much. And can we have Carola, Jackson, and Sarita with Glow and Gather go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Carola Parikh. I'm the co-founder of Glow and Gather, and I am 14 years old. I do the glow side, so I do the body products. So that considers lip balms, salt scrubs, sugar scrubs, and body butters. That's my part of the business. And then my little brother.
Hi, I'm Jackson. So I run the salts and sugars, and we try to, our company tries to be as not as pretty spot on as being helpful to the community and helpful to people of color and the LGBTQA plus community and stuff like that. So yeah, that's me.
And I'm Sarita, and I'm also the co-founder of Glow and Gather, and I help run the business, and we are very founded in, so our product, we're doing natural personal care products, home goods, and spice blends, and we are very founded in sustainability, environmental, social, economic sustainability, and we really believe in creating connections and really helping our community thrive and in social impact.
Thank you. And Leander, would you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Leander Lacey. I am the owner and founder of Lacey Consulting Services. I'm also the lead social scientist. I have been in the environmental field for a little over 12 years now, working at the local level as a bear biologist all the way up to global strategies, working with teams across the globe. And now I started my own business focused really on people first conservation. So really focusing on how do we help communities and individuals improve their human well-being through conservation action. And that's a big difference from how conservation work is done now currently, with a lot of focus really being on just the nature side of things and not focusing on what are the benefits and the mutual symbiotic relationship with humans of this planet and how we work together. And so my company focuses on helping environmental organizations on using social science, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion principles And I do that all packaged within strategic planning. So I don't do any of that stuff unless it's like a 3 to 5 year plan on how we're actually going to get this done and do it on the ground. And I would say similarly, I didn't see representation certainly in the environmental field for myself. I identify as Black, Latino, gay, male, and that's not something that I just see represented. And so I call out those identities because I'm tired of the next generation not having someone to see, because I wanted someone to see and didn't see it. So I'm now just going to be the representation that I want to be for myself. And so I want to help other folks that are in this field see themselves as best they can as well. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Leander. We'll come back to that later. Sydney, would you like to go ahead and go?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Sydney. I'm the owner and founder of Citrine Unlimited. With Citrine Unlimited, I create transformative experiences. And so I do that through coaching. I help folks professionally and personally with their strategy, but also integrating mindset. I feel like there's a lot of either or in our life and in the way that business is done, just business as usual. It's a totally leave your issues at the door type culture when we know that doesn't actually work. If you have a bad day and you're in customer service, and guess what? Your customers are also probably going to hear about your bad day as well in some way in how you come across at work. So what I do is I work with businesses to help them with their business culture. I also work with individuals around things like imposter syndrome. I did a talk earlier today on imposter syndrome, and it's a real thing. There were 700 people registered for the session. So that's how I know it's real. And I also do just event coordination. I'm run and manage EOC, the group, and yeah, that's what I do. I volunteer. I'm a summit guide for Colorado Young Leaders. So I do after school programming with high schoolers. It is a free to reduce cost program. So if you have kids that don't know what to do after school and they want to make a difference in their community, definitely check out Colorado Young Leaders. And then I'm a board member of Guided by Humanity, which is an all abilities yoga and mindfulness studio that just opened its brick and mortar in downtown Inglewood.
Thank you, Sydney. And can we have Tangia go next?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tangia Estrada. I am a women's empowerment and health coach, specifically focusing on women of color with Tangia Renee Coaching. And what I do is I support women who struggle with their body image and self-confidence, learn how to embrace who they really are, love their bodies, and repair toxic relationships with their food and their bodies. And I do this partially because of sustainability from a different angle. But what I found when I came into the wellness industry, I left politics because I was deeply, deeply burned out. I used to run political campaigns. It wasn't a sustainable lifestyle for me. I felt pretty jaded. So I left and I sort of organically transitioned into wellness, not expecting it to be a business. It was just sort of my hobby. And what I found almost immediately when I decided that I was going to start this little tiny side hustle was that there was nobody like me. I'm Afro-Latina, and everywhere I went for resources and to get training and networking, it was almost exclusively white women. And the first time I got invited to sort of a business panel of new coaches and trainers that were starting their businesses, as soon as I got there, it was made very clear to me that the only reason I was invited to that space was because I checked both the Black and the Latino box for them. And I saw that there was a huge problem there. And I took that understanding, was like, okay, I'm gonna do this different. And I really started to niche down and focus specifically on women of color. And there was a sort of a universal truth there when I was working with women who identified with me. And it was that not only did we were living these unsustainable lifestyles in our lifestyle and in our mindset. And there's this way in our country and in the Western world where it's all about binge and then restrict and purge. And that's just the way that we live our lives. And it's not sustainable. But also in the way that we think about ourselves is we were held as separately from the rest of the world, from women in general, because our bodies were different. And we're not for everyone, of course, but a lot of times our bodies were different. And so we were told that we weren't fit enough and we weren't healthy enough, and that we needed to work harder to fit some standard that just didn't fit who we were. So I decided that I was going to build my business around that. And so here we are. And that's what I've been doing now for the past 5 years. On top of that, I'm building out a podcast platform. So I started That's What She Did podcast, again, because I saw a gap in the market where I wasn't hearing stories on podcasts about the women I was really interested in. So these were everyday, normal women who are our neighbors, our aunts, our sisters, our friends, that were doing incredible things, but they're overlooked by mainstream media. And so I decided that I was going to start a podcast just for fun to see if I could do it. And I thought I would do it for one season. And here we are getting ready to launch this October season 6. And it's turning into a much bigger platform where we are really focused on amplifying the voices of women of color who are doing incredible, impactful things in the world, but you're never going to hear about them. And so we are building this out to start to teach women how to tell their stories in a really impactful and meaningful way, how to use it to build their own influence, and how to translate that influence into community impact for the work that they're doing.
Thank you so much. We can't wait to hear more from you, my dear. And then we have Javon Taylor. You were last for the introduction.
How you guys doing? I'm Javon Taylor, CEO, founder of False Ego, or eco-friendly clothing company locally based here in Denver. And one thing we're really focused on is customer empowerment and other sustainable initiatives. We've been in business for a little over 2 years now. We just opened our first retail location in 5 Points. And one of the very few Black businesses in 5 Points right now. So proud to be in that location. But yeah, so we, like I said, we really focus on customer empowerment. So we're allowing people to buy local. We have 5 other businesses represented in our store, 2 being Black women businesses selling candles and skincare products. And we also have 2 local artists who have art on the walls and in the specific room. We've coined our facility as a pavilion. So it's a unique experience. I encourage everybody to come through and come check it out. But yeah, outside of the brand, I'm also an urban farmer. So I work for 2 nonprofits, Frontline Farming and MHCD, Mental Health Center and Wellness. I worked on the Dahlia campus, working in their greenhouse with aquaponics and hydroponics. Also worked on the acre farm. And with Frontline Farming, we have a total of about a little under 12 acres around Denver. And we grow a bunch of fruits and vegetables, serving people in food deserts. And we have partnerships with Whole Foods and Safeway. And we work with a couple senior homes, providing those without family support with fresh produce. So really big in the community, kind of new to the entrepreneur scene, but like I said, only a few years into it, but excited to be on this panel. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We are so happy to be here. And everything that you're doing sounds so cool. So we can't wait to hear more from you. We're going to open up the panel with a question actually from someone. We're going to answer it live. This was directed to Sydney, but I'm going to let Sydney go first. And I'd love to hear at least everyone kind of give a 1 or 2 minute answer to this as well. So the question is, how do you advocate for yourself as a person of color in a predominant white culture?
Everybody laughs and smiles. Man, way to start it off with a tough question. I just had to come to an understanding with myself that I was going to be uncomfortable, when we look at white comfort, I'm always uncomfortable anyway, right? It's always about not hurting someone else's feelings. I worked in the corporate world. So it was always about, don't hurt this person's ego. Don't get too creative, stay in your lane. And I was also pushed into being pigeonholed into a certain light. And I got tired of it. I just kind of was like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of this. I'm not doing it anymore. And I kind of just came to that decision for myself. To where I'm just going to be honest and authentic. And it wasn't like overnight, bam, there was a change. It was just, okay, I'm uncomfortable now so that in the future, my children, if I have kids or, whatever, will be able to step into the space and not feel the same way I do right now. That's just kind of where I came from with it, is I'm doing this for the future. I'm breaking glass ceilings for the future. And I still have to coach myself, and I get coaching around this all the time. And I probably should be in therapy too about it. I'm an advocate for therapy. My mom's a therapist. She can't be my therapist though, so there's rules against that. But really though, it's just a decision you have to make for yourself, and then you just start living that way and knowing that you will get pushback. I get pushback all the time. I did a conversation 2 days ago about white supremacy in the workspace, and the first review we got on YouTube after our live session was a thumbs down. So that means somebody was listening, and if you're hating it, well, you heard it, and don't contact me because you're not for me. So anyway, I'll let other people answer it.
Yeah. Leander, would you mind chiming in on this?
Yeah, I would say I echo a lot of what Sydney just said. You know, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you don't have to advocate for yourself. You're just like, I'm going to be authentic every single day. I'm not working for anyone but myself. So it's not, who am I trying to fool at this point? But it does take time. I mean, I had to hit a low point working for other people for me to finally dig and claw out and say, you know what, I'm tired. And, you know, being authentic is actually what that's what sells. That's what sells, to be quite honest, is being authentic. Is when you're true to yourself, is true to everything that you believe in, that you're going to get the right clients who are going to come to you. So yes, sure, there's a white supremacy culture and there's a white dominant culture, right? But there are people out there looking for you. They want you, but they're not going to find you if you're still hiding your true self from them. So being authentic is critically important, and really that's where the money is.
Yeah, any other panelists want to chime in on this? This is some good stuff. I dropped some little nuggets in the chat.
Can I chime in?
Yes, please.
So I guess this is fortunately, I'm with the younger generation. And so I've come to the conclusion that kids have learned from their parents in the way that their parents have learned. And I'm in high school, and they're still trying to figure out exactly where they are within their parents' beliefs and their own beliefs. And so they're in the conflict of whether or not they are going to be racist or sexist or homophobic, and what they actually believe in. So I just had to learn to brush comments off and realize that in 4 years, I'm never going to see these people again. And hopefully they learn from their mistakes and the things that they are saying, and realize that it doesn't really matter who we are on the outside. It's technically who we are on the inside that matters. And that is coming from one of like 7 brown girls in a predominantly white school.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. It's not going to matter after 4 years, boo. And look at you. You started a business while you were young. Like, that speaks volumes. So you keep doing you, and trust me, they're going to be like, oh, that girl, she was already starting a business. You know what I'm saying? So keep it going. Anyone else want to chime on this amazing topic before we move on?
Well, and I was just going to add that on that authenticity, and like for Glow and Gather, we truly embrace who we are as far as our Indian heritage and infuse that into everything we do with Glow and Gather. And we really do try to promote that in our products and the way we present ourselves. And again, this is who we are. This is part of our company. This is part of our heritage. This is how we promote ourselves. And so we don't hide from it. And so we really do. If you don't like it, then again, we're not the company for you. But I think in promoting that, we promote it in a positive way. We're starting a celebration of cultures and countries series on social media, and not just for India, but countries and cultures around the world, because we really do think it's important to celebrate and learn for everybody about different cultures, food, the culture, everything about a country, and do interviews, because it's the differences and the similarities that really make us stronger together. And so that's who we are as a company, and that's what we're promoting, and trying to really bring that to the forefront, that we should really be celebrating each other and all our differences. And I think it might make some people uncomfortable again to like have that in your face. But it's really important, I think, to keep bringing those conversations to the forefront.
Yes, I agree. And one thing I always say is sometimes, as POCs, LGBT, like being uncomfortable is our norm. That is our normal. And I think that's kind of a superpower as well. So I love how you were saying about, infusing your culture. And if that's not for you, it's not for them, and that's okay. Tangia, what are your thoughts about being a POC in a white dominant culture, especially with you launching your podcast? How has that been like an eye opener for you and what you're actually doing and creating?
I think for me, it came down to, I think for probably most, like most of the panel, is you get to a point where you're just tired and you can't anymore. You've tried really hard to be successful and check all the boxes and do all of the things within the structure that you were given. I did all those things. I checked all the boxes, and I got to this career, to this high point in this career, and I looked around and I was still not happy. And not only was I not happy, I was sick. Like I was physically and spiritually sick all of the time. So when I left that world, I had to sort of rebuild myself, and I had to figure out, who am I and who am I going to be, and how do I want to show up in the world? And when you go through that process and you realize who you are, and you make a decision that you are just going to show up as that person, no matter what you do, I don't get uncomfortable anymore. I am not uncomfortable. I don't care. Like, I am not here for your comfort. I don't care if what we say on the podcast makes you uncomfortable. There are literally a million podcasts. Go listen to one of them. I don't want to hear about it. Like, I don't care if what I say on social media about, Black bodies and brown bodies being different and treated differently from white bodies makes you upset. I'm just not here for it. I'm here to be authentic and walk in my truth. And my job is to always try to be in alignment with who I am. And that leads me, I think, naturally to the next step. What is the next iteration of this business? How does it need to change? What do we need to do with this platform that we're trying to do? And I don't have to feel uncomfortable. I just got to be me and do what I feel like I was sent here to do. And somehow it just all works out. It works itself out.
Exactly. And that's what I love. I love your podcast. I'm actually a big fan. And I think that's exactly what you do. And how you bring that to the forefront, because it's still not being talked about. I'm a podcast connoisseur, still not being talked about. So I love that. That's how you are empowering not only, people of color, women of color, LGBT. I mean, a lot of people who have those differences that are not being, talked about. You're still opening up those conversations. Jackson, you had your hand raised, my dear. Do you mind going and speaking more about this topic?
Sure. So, just me being, just like coming from a half white, half Black, family, and then just having a school that's mostly in the neighborhood of just a lot of white dominant, people. So it's hard, especially being LGBTQ and just being me and in school with all these other people, and then trying to be doing school at that school with just a couple other kids like me. And so, yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Javon, did you have something to add to this?
No, yeah. I think it's all been said.
Yes. So the next question that I have for our beautiful panel is, being a BIPOC entrepreneur committed to sustainability, what has been one of your biggest challenges so far?
Can I start that off?
Please.
Yeah. Biggest challenge is believing in myself. Other people can tell you what they think about you, but if you can't look in the mirror and say that to yourself, it doesn't really matter. And so I had to get rid of the negativity that I had ingested and digested, living as a queer person, as a Black person, as a trans person. I had ingested so much, and I'm gonna let Javon talk about what food does for the soul. But when you ingest things and it's not good for you, it comes out in different ways. And for me, what I was ingesting of not being able to fit came out in me ostracizing myself from my gift. I knew I had a gift to do this. I knew I had a gift to speak and to tell stories about my lived experience. But I never thought my story mattered. Even though I didn't see it represented, I didn't think it mattered, because if it mattered, it would already be out, right? If you go to a bread house, millions of different types of bread. So obviously bread is a thing. So I thought the same way about my lived experience. There's somebody more qualified. There's somebody more in line with what they know and how they show up in the world. And so the minute that I got, as everyone else said, I got tired, I had to put shame down. I had to take it off. I'll say that. I wore it like it was a coat that fit good for me. And I had to take that off. And the minute I took that off and I began to show up as myself, that's when my story actually became whole. And so I think for me, I was my biggest adversary. And now that I've met and matched wits with myself, can't nobody else do nothing with me. Can't nobody tell me what I can't do. I can't believe anybody else because I never saw them as a challenge before. It was always myself. And so the minute I looked in the mirror and it stopped being about me and it became me, then I started to do the work that I was called to do. And so that's where I am with it, is that other folks didn't do this to me. I was doing it to myself. And the minute I recognized that, now I can do what I was intended to do. And that's how my sustainability, my social sustainability story actually began.
Wow. Wow. There's some gold nuggets all up in there, just gold nuggets. I mean, I think shame and one thing I like, Sydney always talks about imposter syndrome. And I feel like it goes even deeper to like what you just said, like being afraid to just share your story, taking off that shame coat. I put that in the chat because I loved that. I think a lot of the times we are the challenge. And sometimes once we move that obstacle out of the way, we're able to do some real damage. You know what I'm saying? We're really able to go out there. So thank you for sharing that, because it's something I have still been facing that. I'm just now taking off that shame coat, getting comfortable in my own skin. And so I feel like that's something that I think will always kind of be there for some of us. It may take us a little, while to get in that visibility and being like able to claim that and just run with it. So yes, I love hearing that. Who else here has a challenge they like to share about being a BIPOC in sustainability?
I was going to say, just really quick to piggyback off of Patrice, is that you said something that really resonates to what I even coach on and what I experienced myself, is that I had tons of self-confidence. Like, I remember you from when I was an undergrad and a graduate at Colorado State University. You had tons of self-confidence, but what I would never know, I think you had tons of self-confidence. The question is self-worth. I had that issue, tons of self-confidence. My friends would say, Sydney, she's a go-getter. She loves to dance. She loves to sing, to laugh. But inside, I felt worthless. And so there was a lot of work that I had to, a lot of trauma and just my mindset that I had to work on to get around that. So I have some other things to share, but I'm going to let other folks go too, because I know Javon hasn't even gotten to speak yet. So.
No, I would say the biggest challenge that I've faced being a BIPOC and sustainability, I would say the access to funding. And then I would also say just, getting more young faces, young Black faces, young people of color in rooms like this, giving them platforms to speak. I've found a lot of people my age kind of look to outsource their resources. Like, I have to go to LA, I have to go to New York, I have to go to wherever these bigger markets are to fulfill my dreams. And I think it's up to us to build those platforms. So it's kind of been like my challenge to myself is like, all right, instead of like always looking to these bigger platforms to, transform my career or to, improve my career, it's like, how can we create our own platforms? How can we help those around us. So that's kind of my biggest challenge, but mostly access to funding. I think that's something we're really looking for right now. It's been a challenge for sure, but so right now we're mostly doing angel investors. But yeah, I would say that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah. And I was going to say, oh, go ahead. Oh, no. Okay. So, yeah, funding for sure. But I think being taken seriously a lot of times, I think for us, like, and I actually have two different experiences. So with Glow and Gather, I think, like just looking younger, being a person of color, having two youth co-founders, like you just don't get taken as seriously. And so like, you know, and then that like we always like, well, we know our products are good, but are they, you know, like we just, then again, it comes back to that worth, like, do we actually have what it takes to make it? And are our products really worth it? And is our company, you know, and so it comes all back to that value and self-value, but because we aren't taken as seriously, but then we bring that, we reflect that back onto ourselves. But, and then in the sustainability world, there is like, you know, you go to, a lot of events and there aren't people of color. It's all a very white community. And so it's harder to engage in these conversations because I think we need to be bringing more people of color, more diversity into the sustainability world, into the business world, and there just isn't. And so it's just been a really interesting experience with Glow and Gather, and that like not being taken as seriously, not like, and then for us not then feeling like we have that value. But on the flip side, I also had, or still do a little bit, have a private practice in physical therapy. I'm a physical therapist. And I've had that private practice for about 15 years. And I never felt that when on that side, because Indians are expected to be in healthcare. Like I fit that box. And so because I fit the box of Indians are healthcare providers, like I've never experienced any of that as a physical therapist and in my private practice. It's just where I'm expected to be. So it's just a very interesting switch from doing that to Glow and Gather. And it's two different worlds.
Jackson, go ahead.
So to piggyback off of everybody, so like just like being not taken as seriously, just being like a youth business owner, because like everybody's like, oh, a kid, you don't understand business, you don't know how to make stuff, like, and then they just pass you off like you're just somebody who's trying and you're not really doing anything, and like doing like being in the white community and like not being looked as like something like that, like somebody I forgot the words. Okay.
Like being taken seriously, being heard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so just being that kind of person and just like, because I never had to worry about like telling people about me being gay because nobody asked, and I wasn't, because I never said it in public till like right now. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for being you, my dear. You're wonderful. And I love your suit. Yes. So Carola, did you have something to add, my dear?
Yes. So okay. I want to give a little shout out to my brother. That's a huge step for you to come out in public. You haven't done that yet. And I know for myself, my grandpa is gay. And so for me, that's always been something I had to ask my mom in like 6th grade. I was like, is my grandpa gay? Because it was just so normal for me. I would see gay people in public and be like, that's awesome, go them. And it was just something I was really proud of. And I didn't realize that other people had an issue with it. And I got really annoyed when I found out that people had an issue with it because I didn't understand it because I never had an issue with it. But I have something else to add, technically. That wasn't what I was wanting to say. But I would like to say that when I tell people I have a business, because I started it when I was around 10 and I'm 14 now. And so it's been a while. But when I tell people I have a business, they're like, oh, you have an Etsy shop, right? I was like, I go to markets, I have a website. Like, I'm actually an established business owner. And it kind of catches people off guard because I'm a female, I'm younger, and I have my own business that's established. And I'm doing these crazy, outrageous things that people can't fathom yet, which I find really funny. And it gives me a kick because I think I'm like, it's so normal to me that when people can't fathom it, I just take it as a little joke and I take it lightheartedly because that's not something to be bothered about, in my opinion. But I'm also really good at just processing information and putting it into cubbies so that I don't get torn down personally and inside, and so that I have a better life, in my opinion. If I hope that didn't come out wrong, but that's all I wanted to say.
No, thank you so much for saying that. And, I think that, like, again, like you and Jackson are huge inspirations even to myself. When I was younger, I wanted to start a business and I was doing little things, but like you said, people didn't take me seriously. And at that age, people aren't really encouraging you to do the things that you two are doing. So don't listen to them, shake them haters off. Y'all are doing some bad things, some really cool stuff. So Leander, I wanted to kind of get your opinion as well with your business and sustainability, because we've had conversations before about this. You coming into spaces that are mostly white audiences, and how you have to kind of come in there and establish yourself as the expert that you are in a field that is still mind-boggling to myself. So would you mind speaking on that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm lucky in that I have credibility already. I've been on the global conservation stage, and people knew my name when I left my old organization to start this one. So that was very helpful, right? At the same time, I think one of the issues that a lot of BIPOC, especially if you're a consultant, might run into is that you don't know what people historically have charged for your services, and what they charge your white counterpart may not be what they're charging you, and you have no way of knowing that information. And so trying to find a way to value yourself, like literally value yourself and put a number on it, is difficult. And sometimes, as Black entrepreneurs, especially any of us who are working in justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work, there is an added fee called emotional labor that you have to pay if you want me to work for you. And I deserve it because I have to go through I have all the technical expertise, personal experiences. And on top of that, I have to go through the trauma every time I have to teach a historically white organization about what it means to be a person of color, LGBT, whatever the case may be. And that's a difficult sell, but I hold my ground. And I've also learned more about myself, about what it means for me to work in diversity in the environmental field. I let people know very much up front, and I kind of try to explain it in the very beginning. If we're not incorporating this into strategies, I'm not working with you. If you want some tears, there are plenty of consultants out there who will be more than happy to make you cry. But if you're not talking about transformational change on the ground, making sure that Indigenous BIPOC people, like BIPOC folks, are really impacted by conservation work and are really seeing a change, and we're really bringing more people to quote unquote the table, which, by the way, I love. Someone told me, who built that table? Who brought those chairs there? Let's flip the darn table over and let's go outside and sit on the ground, because I don't want to be at the table to begin with. Because who built that table? Primarily, it was, from a white culture perspective, who built that table that now wants everyone to come sit at it. So I'm trying to transform how white organizations, and I say that because a majority of, unfortunately, a lot of conservation groups right now, primarily white, they are trying to fix that, but even as years go by, they keep getting whiter and not more diverse. So, they can say they want to do it, but they're not actually doing it. So it's traumatic to keep having to explain these issues over and over and over again, and nothing's happening. So, like I said, as a BIPOC person, and they love to, they want to pigeonhole me there, right? That's not even my calling. I'm a social scientist. I'm an environmental social scientist. But they want to so quickly pigeonhole me into, oh, you're the Jedi learning initiative person. And that's not the case. So you really got to advocate for yourself as a BIPOC person.
Yes, 100%. And here's a question I'm gonna throw at you that's actually from an attendee to follow up on that. Where do white business leaders start to make a more inclusive work environment? And, you know, I feel like that's a great segue to this question, because I feel like a lot of the times, you know, I feel like allies are those that are really wanting to get involved or have us, quote unquote, seat at the table. I like that how you talked about that. I am always like, do your research and educate yourself first, right? It's not our job to educate you on anti-racist work. You should definitely seek resources because there's plenty of them on that. However, when it comes to the work environment, in your opinion, my lovely panelists, tell me what you think, how people should go about that.
Is it okay if I start off?
Get it, Sydney.
There's a lot of things I can say, and I'm excited to hear what this panel has to say, because we actually did a discussion for Denver Startup Week on this on Tuesday. The one thing I will say that I said then is that I do business with sustainability in mind, and that doesn't just mean the environment, right? That means, what is the culture like? Where's your money going? So for me, what that means is not just who are your employees on the ground level, who are your managers, who's your CEO, your CFO, what do they look like? What's their background? Okay, that's the first thing. Now, if you're already in a business and everybody's white, I'm not saying to fire everybody, but what's your supply chain like? What's your supply chain at work like? Who are you partnering with? Where are you getting your supplies from? Where are you doing your contracting? Who are you doing your contracting with? What does that look like? Because if you start digging into your supply chain and everybody is white and it's male dominated, that's an issue. You're not really diverse. You can say as much as you want, Black Lives Matter on your website. I don't believe you, okay? So, and this goes for your personal life as well, okay? And I said this, Sarita and I were just last week or a week ago on a conversation with Women in Sustainability. Who are you personally doing business with in your own life? I brought up the example of like, who's your yoga studio? Is it Core Power? Or is it someone like Satya? Or is it something like Guided by Humanity? People who actually make a difference in the world and in the community. That's just a simple example, but really, who are you supporting in work and in life? So I think that's really important, along with languaging. You know, how are you communicating and connecting with diverse groups in your business? I'm sick and tired of just seeing photos all of a sudden of Black couples and Black people, okay? That doesn't mean that your business is diverse, okay? You can't trick me. I'm not stupid. We're not stupid. So really start digging into who your network is. And I start asking questions, to be honest. When I meet with people, I start asking them all these questions. Because I'm at that point, like I said before, I don't care. I'm not going to work with you if I can't see that you're actually putting the work in. So that's all I got to say.
Love it. Again, gold nuggets just dripping everywhere. Patrice, what are your thoughts about that too? About, you know, how can white business leaders have a more inclusive work environment?
They first have to acknowledge that the work environment is toxic. If you cannot acknowledge that there's a toxic nature already there, then there's nothing that we can actually work from, because we haven't accepted that the change needs to happen. If they don't recognize that change has to be over time, it can't happen tomorrow or next week, then again, we can't do anything with it. That's one of the things that eROOT does is we look at the sustainability effort as it relates to social sustainability. I don't need a crayon box of workforce implementation. I don't need just different colors of people to show up, because if their voices are not counted, if they're not heard, then there's no purpose in that, and you become a vehicle of trauma for them, because they're constantly having to reassert what they already have done, which is they earn the right to be there. They are supposed to be there, but then they have to earn the respect to be listened to, and that's too much. So for me, that's the first thing that I would definitely say, is that you have to own where you are in the journey. You have to actually write it down as it's a line item. This is business. It ain't personal right now. So business is how do we figure out laterally, vertically, how to get to our next stage of development. And if you can't do that, then you actually have no intention of doing anything around creating an inclusionary culture, because I think we also lean on the fact of diversity. So, oh, I want to create diversity. If you have more than one person who looks and is exactly like you in every shape and function, you have now created diversity. I need inclusion. And inclusion is much harder and it's much, but it can be tracked. You can track it better than just having a diverse view of things. So that would be my call to action for companies. The same way that you would walk in and get a consultant to ensure that you are economically stable, get a consultant to make sure that you're socially sustainable. The same way that you would go in and make sure that you can do all these other things, do that with your diversity and inclusion and equity standard, and own it when you're wrong. Own when you're wrong. Own when it's not the best practice. Don't keep pushing stuff that you know don't work. And let the people who are already there do what they have come there to do. I want the company to actually thrive, but there have been people who have put blood, sweat, and tears that are still on that entry level positioning. Don't just advocate for them and move them up because of the color of their skin, and therefore now they are expert in diversity and inclusion. Move them because they bring a financial understanding that also is backed by a lived experience, which is that of a BIPOC person. And if you can't do that, don't hurt my people no more than you already did. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. When you are ready to change and you really want to do something, then there are excellent people on this panel. There are excellent consultants in your area that will help you create a plan that will move forward, that will be as less traumatic as possible. But if that's not what you're willing to do and you ain't got no money for it, don't call me.
You better preach on that sermon. What I loved what you said is, the whole idea of advancing someone just because they fit that. And I would say token Black person or token BIPOC person. Coming from an HR background, I constantly saw that. I constantly lived that. And it doesn't do anyone any good at all. And it also just, to me, creates a hostile work environment and culture, and which only just perpetuates that cycle, right? They can't advance because if they advance, they become the same token person, or for instance, admin. I was always the admin girl, the front desk girl, because that was the only place they could see me be in. And I will say that there's ways around that. You could just ask someone, where do you want to grow? Just start with a question. You don't have to just assume that because they're good at this one skill set, that's the only thing that they can do. I loved what you said, like preach it. I put some nuggets in the chat. Before we move to the I want to say final-ish last question, because I'm looking at time. What, Tangia, did you have anything to add to the idea of this inclusion environment in a business? Because with your platform, I'm curious in what your thoughts are on this question.
Yeah, I think the thing that's been, I think a lot about this, so I'm trying to be succinct. I think what I see happening a lot with businesses or companies that are saying we're ready to be more inclusive and we don't know how to do that. I've been, since March, really, since the beginning of the protests, I've seen a pretty big uptick in the number of individuals, companies, publishing companies, especially reaching out to me going, this is what we're trying to do. And we're trying to be more inclusive and we want to be allies. Well, at the same time, doing the exact opposite thing. So for example, if we're talking about the podcast, it's pretty clear that the podcast is meant to amplify the voices of women of color. And while we don't do that exclusively, I'm not opposed to having white women on the show and do in fact do it every season. It amazes me how the company that will reach out to me and say, we really like your show because it's diverse and it's bold and you have these really interesting bold conversations is what they like to say to me a lot. I don't think they're particularly that bold, but that's what they say. While at the same time saying, oh, and by the way, we have this person that we think would be an excellent fit for your show. And it's almost always a white woman. Sometimes it's even a white male. I don't do men on the show. I do people who identify as women, wherever they are on that gender spectrum, as long as they identify as women. And so I started to have this conversation with them where I was like, you know that we amplify the voices of women of color. I'm curious to understand why you have only put forth people who identify as women who don't fit that identity. And they're like, oh, well, she's great. And she's just great. And she has a lot of value to add to your audience. And I'm like, you don't know anything about my audience. And, so it's a lot of talking out of one side of their mouth and acting in another. And it's a complete lack of authenticity. I will say that there are times that I see individuals and companies trying and just sort of making mistakes. And it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to be wrong and admit that you took the wrong step. Where I see these people going wrong is that they double down on the mistake. And they're like, oh, well, that wasn't my intention. And what I keep telling people is your intention does not matter. What matters is your impact. That's what matters. And the way that I've been explaining this to people to try to make it sink in is that if I open a door and I'm walking through that door, when I open that door, you happen to be coming in on the other side of it and I smack you in the face with the door and it breaks your nose. I didn't intend to break your nose. In fact, I was walking through that door because I was excited to meet you maybe, but I didn't intend to break your nose. And when you look at me with your broken nose and blood streaming down your face onto the carpet and your shoes, you don't want to hear from me, that wasn't my intention. Don't be mad, I didn't intend to do it. You don't care that I didn't intend to break your nose. You care that your nose is broken. And so I need to be apologizing for the pain that I caused, not the intention in the act. And so I've been explaining it this way now, and they've been backing off and going, okay, I need to think about that more. And sometimes they just get pissed off and I never hear from them again, which is fine. Like, I don't really have time. But that's the amount, like, as I think Leander was saying, the amount of emotional labor you have to do to explain these things. Like, it's a whole chain of emails, it's text messages, it's phone calls, it's this whole thing to get to this example where they're like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, here's my thing. If you aren't in it to be real, then I think it was Patrice that said, don't call me. Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Like, why are you even willing to waste your time on that level? But if you're willing to do this work and you are going to accept out of the gate that you're going to screw it up, then we can have a conversation about that. What you don't get to do is double down on your mistake and try to make it my fault because you think your intention is more important than the pain that you cause, because it never is. Never.
Ugh, girl.
So that's what I got to say about that.
Just get it. Drop in again. Gold nuggets. So I wanted to wrap up this question with Javon first before I move on to the last one, because we've got a few minutes. What are your thoughts on this idea of inclusion in a work environment? I'm curious because, with what you do, Javon, with your business and kind of your platform and what you're all about, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just important for people to challenge. Like, if you're walking into a room full of just mainly white people, or just mainly even a room full of black people, like, I feel like it's important to challenge the people in that room and the person holding those events to how can we, make this room more inclusive? How can we make this room more diverse? Because, I mean, if you just have one perspective, you have one gender, one race, one whatever, you're automatically biased, and it's like, you might not be in you should talk about earlier. It's like not about your intention. It's about who's in that room. So if you only have one race or one gender or one demographic in this room, you're going to get one thought process. If you need to add multiple perspectives in order to increase more diverse results. So I mean, I think everything else is pretty much said. I would just say, like, challenge. If you're walking into a room full of just one kind of person, then I would challenge you to challenge that. Exactly. So.
Yes, I love that. And I also wrote down what you said earlier about if there's no platform for you, create your own. I thought that was powerful of what you said. And then to the flip side of that is if you're in a room where the room looks like you and you don't see anyone else that looks different than you, what can you do to make that change? Who can you invite to come speak? How can you collaborate with someone else? What partnerships can you foster? I think that is so key right now. And again, like I love each one of you have hit the nail on the head time and time and again. It is also your attention, but it's up to you to do that work here on the inside. But it's also your job to make that change too. You know, I feel like sometimes people think that it's our responsibility as BIPOC community to just make that change and come into the rooms that, you know, and like really do all this work. But in reality, they need to be aware and they need to acknowledge that there's something that needs to give and they need to start taking the initiative in making that change. So I love what you said, Javon. That is so, so true. I want to end with one question before we wrap up. But before that, I want to give a little shout out to Sarita. Tanisha said that she loves your beautiful clear skin. And I figure, well, that makes sense with your business, but I wanted to give you that shout out before I forgot. So the last so the last question I wanted to end with is how can allies champion your business and business like yours? You know, we just talked about inclusion in the work environment. So how can allies really get behind and champion? I know we talked a little bit about that, but I kind of wanted to see what your thoughts are as we bring this to a close.
I would say the best way to champion it would just be to spread the word, you know, and spread the word why our initiatives are important. Not just say, oh, you know, so and so is doing this or that. It's like they're doing this and that, and this is why that's important. Because I feel like that conversation isn't had enough. Like I think a lot of people are just spreading the word or saying Black Lives Matter or just saying these, you know, these words that hold very little value and don't really lead to action. It's like if you explain to somebody, okay, say Sydney is doing this, and this is why this is important, that person is way more likely to support what Sydney is doing rather than just being aware of who Sydney is. So I think that'd be the best way to champion effort.
Great. Anyone next? Rapid fire.
Yeah, I'll add in there, really build a relationship with that business that you want to promote as well. I will say that I knew a friend of mine who told another person like, oh, you should really promote this person. He's into, you know, conservation, whatever. And so I didn't even meet this person. He was like putting my name out there and I was getting clients calling me and none of the clients were a fit. I'm like, this is not, it's close, but it's not quite there. And so if you want to be, so I emailed him. I was like, hey, we need to talk about my business. If you want to promote me, I appreciate it, but maybe you should get to know me first before you go out and promote me. And so we sat and had a long conversation, and literally after that, every single client that he referred to me was like spot on, nail on, exactly what I was looking for. And so if you want to be a person that promotes, then you need to understand the business that you're promoting. You need to ask them, you need to call them, let's set up a Zoom call, let's talk about it, so that you can accurately reflect what that business really is and that you're sending them the right kind of clients.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Glow and Gather as a business is we like getting to know you better. Even if we don't get to sell you products, it's worth the experience of getting to know somebody. I think finding out our past and our future and our present, and your past and your future and your present is much better way of being able to get to know us. Because I know that all the people that have talked to us or have been in touch with us or have stayed around long enough to figure out who we are, we're really, really close friends with. Or we still talk to this day, or we have partnerships with, or we're on their panel, like things like that come in really handy. So it's just, again, creating relationships, because those hold on longer than maybe your business or where you work. It's just relationships that matter.
Love it. I'll take one other person before I close.
I would say I'm probably on the far end. I don't look for allies anymore. I need an accomplice. I need some intentionality behind what you do. And if we think about how I think allyship has just become a badge that people like to wear, and they like to promote themselves as allies. But I'm like, Rihanna, I need you to just pull up. Like, that's all I need from you right now is I need you to pull up. I need you to represent. And I need you. And the only way you can do that is by knowing me. I think that's what everyone is saying. I One of the things that I think we hear all the time is like, I didn't do this because I have a Black friend. I'm not the Black friend because I'm family to my friends. So if you know me, and you know what we do, and you know what the work is, and you know how to show up for me when I'm not in the room. It's the same thing like when I'm using my pronouns. If you can't refer to me by my pronouns to my face, I guarantee you when you go into a room, you will misgender me because you don't know me. And it's the exact same thing with the work as well. If you don't know the work, you will misrepresent what I am trying to provide and the services that the organization gives. So it really goes beyond allyship. And I think that's where we are in this country. This is where we are in society right now. We don't have time for folks who want the badge that comes with allyship. We want the folks who are just like, you tell me where to meet you and I'm there. And those are the folks that we need to continue to not only promote the organizations that we represent, but also be able to show up for me when you're in that meeting and I'm being misrepresented. I need you to be that type of accomplice as well, to be like, that's not even what Patrice does. This is what Patrice does. And if it's an issue, you and Patrice don't have to work with each other anymore, and leave it at that. And so I think that's where we are in this fight, in this work, especially in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is about movement. It is an actionary thing, and I need people who represent an actionary life with me. And if that's not what you're willing to do, I don't have time. I just don't have the time.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just nuggets, just dropping everywhere. I would say like the one thing that I love that you said, and it's a theme of mine, is either you're on the train with me or you're off. I don't have time to be slowing down because you can't make up your mind of what you want to do. And that's exactly what entrepreneurship is. It is movement. And I think that a lot of people, they forget that. They get caught up in trying to please everyone and everything, or or trying to convince others that they are of worth and that they are an expert in their field, when they really should just be out there being visible with who they are. And either you're an accomplice or you're an obstacle, is what that sounds like. Either you're propelling me forward or you're keeping me back. And again, we don't have time for that, especially as BIPOC folks in business. We do not have time for you to figure out what you want to do. So I love everything that you have said. Sydney, do you want to say anything right before I wrap up?
Yeah, I actually do. Thank you so much. I have a little surprise for all the panelists. I saw this actually on a discussion that I was on, and I totally emailed them today and was like, I'm copying you all, just so you know. So I want to say thank you to everybody who was a panelist who took the time to be here today. You each are getting a tree in your business's name. This is just an example in Otisa's name. So each of you have planted 2 trees in Colorado. You know we need them. And for Glow and Gather, you guys have you all have a total of 6. So yeah. So thank you to all of the panelists for taking this time out of your day, because I know we just talked about how we don't have time, but this is to symbolize the seeds we're planting right now for the future. So thank you. And I'll hand it back over to you, Otisa.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sydney, that's just so lovely. I love trees. Okay, before I get on a tangent about trees, I wanted to let you guys know, if you enjoyed this conversation here today and want to keep it going, please be sure to come back for our networking event next Wednesday, September 23rd at 5:30 p.m. You'll see all of us. We'll have more conversation, and I put the link in the chat in case you wanted to go ahead and take a look. Also, if you wanted to be part of the EOC Facebook community, it is free. Feel free to check that out as well. I'll put that link back in the chat again. We would love to have you at our panels, which are monthly, usually towards the end of the month, I believe, on Wednesdays. So
Yeah.
if I'm wrong.
Nope, you're right.
Yay! So without further ado, I hope the panelists put all their information into the chat. Some people have asked how to get in touch with any of our panelists, including myself. Our information is in the chat. Feel free to reach out to us. We're all pretty friendly and awesome. I happen to be a huge fan of everyone on the panel, so I'm sure that they would love to hear from you. You guys are great. Each panelist has spoken so much truth today in what it means to be a entrepreneur of color, and what we, the different challenges that we've experienced and what we do expect and want during our entrepreneurship. I hope that you guys got as many takeaways as I have. I think this has been nothing but inspiration at its finest. And I'm just so happy that we were able to be here and be part of Denver Startup Week. So yay.
Thank you all. And on the screen is everyone's social media handles. So if you didn't get to see the chat, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, you'll be able to connect with us all either on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever that is. Awesome. Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I so look forward to having you at our networking night. So I'll see you all next week then.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.